Most of the things that are the most important when it comes to actually making someone feel cared for are actually the things that we don't say. It's the space that we leave in between the words that we use that often make people feel like what we're trying to say is actually something for them. And we cater that depending on the person that we're talking to. If we don't, we're gonna end up having these kind of monotonous conversations and not necessarily allowing that other person to really hear what we have to say to them. That usually leads to difficult relationships. That usually leads to circumstances where we actually mean good things, but because of our communication style, it comes off the wrong way. And so what that boils down to is you have to figure out what it is that requires you to talk and what it is that requires you to listen. That's the bare bones basics. So silence, I actually did an experiment a while ago about the power of silence. I was going through some things in my life and I decided that perhaps I was talking too much. Perhaps I was saying too much. Perhaps I was saying the wrong things. And so in my quarantine period, I basically tried to avoid having drawn out conversations in any capacity. This goes along with my philosophy of learning our extremes. When I figured out how important silence is, I started employing it in a lot of different ways. Now, what did I figure out about silence? I figured out that sometimes when someone is telling you something that you don't like hearing or something that you don't necessarily agree with, sometimes you don't have to say shit. Sometimes you can just be silent and they know what you're going to say if they know you well enough. Sometimes when there is a joyful situation and there's a large gathering of people, to take our ego out of it and to sit there and watch and to enjoy the moment actually builds it. These are nuances of the nonverbal, quite literally not saying anything. But what about body language? What does our body language say about who we are? In my estimation, our posture is a massive indicator of how much confidence we have.
Stand up straight.
If we are not constantly thinking about, hey, maybe I need to have my shoulders back, maybe I need to have my head straight, we're not realizing what impact we have on our surroundings. When we walk into an environment, how is it that we are perceived? Especially if we're in a leadership role or a role that requires people's attention. At the end of the day, if your posture is poor, it doesn't ever give confidence to the people that you are talking to. Now, posture is a product of a variety of different things. Perhaps you just have the genetics to have good posture. Perhaps you have an environment where your parents have good posture and consistently work out. But there is a subconscious thing that plays drastically into posture. It's genuinely our self-worth. If we don't believe that we are actually responsible, respectable people, we're going to have a hard time having good posture. In fact, in Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, he talks about crabs. And he talks about lobsters basically making their way in through hierarchies. Whenever a lobster succeeds, its posture improves, it opens up. Whenever a lobster fails, its posture actually closes up. And this posture is actually an indication to the lobsters as to where in the hierarchy, the food chain, or the respect levels, the achievement levels that lobster is in their colonies. Now, that's just posture, right? What about facial expressions? There's a concept called social sanctions, something that I love to use and something that's taught me a lot in my life. A social sanction is when we do something strange or weird or rude and someone gives us a cue that that is not appreciated. It could be a lift of an eyebrow. It could be a change in just your face, your mouth. It could be a sniff. It could be turning your body away. Any of these things, when we're acutely aware, will give away how people are perceiving the things that we're saying, and are very useful in circumstances that we want to have the grace to still deliver some sort of message to the person that we care about, without, again, being verbal about it. The other thing is, when you have body language that is directed towards you, meaning the flat face of my body is going towards the camera, that means I am paying attention to the camera. If, however, I turn this way and I talk to you, it doesn't feel the same. my body language is directed somewhere else. And that shows people and yourself whether or not someone is really paying attention to you when you're having a conversation with them. In business networking meetings, you can see this all the time. A group of people is standing in a circle, right? Maybe two people really want to interact with each other. Maybe they're having a really important conversation. And when you come in, that body language doesn't switch up. That probably tells you that you're not necessarily invited in that conversation. Now, most people are not necessarily aware of these cues, but on the whole, I personally have observed them quite a bit, and most of the psychologists and psychiatrists that I listen to have also observed them. Now, we talked about posture, we talked about facial expressions, we talked about really the directionality of our body. The nuance in understanding all of these things in ourselves is that we can actually gauge someone's character to some degree based on the way that they walk, based on the way that they talk, and based on the way that they leave space. In general, when it comes down to it, I like to observe people. I've always been a people watcher. I'm sure some of you watching this right now love watching people. It's an interesting thing to do. Everyone has a different way of speaking. Everyone has a different way of walking, of moving about, different styles, different smoothness. And the funny part is, if I took my glasses off and I saw a friend walking down the street, I could tell that it's my friend just based on their walk. There's a very good chance that you've experienced this too. Now, if that doesn't tell you that what I'm saying is true, perhaps another thing will tell you something. Now, when people dance, when people are out and about, and when people are just relaxing, for instance, the posture that we choose to relax is also an indication of our personalities. I like crossing my legs when I sit down, right? But I don't do it the masculine way. Most of the time, I'll cross my legs right over here, like this, right? To me, that's because I want to be perceived as an intellectual. It's something that I actually want society to see. But it's also a more interesting way for me to sit, to enjoy my life. When we get more and more nuanced in our communication, nonverbal communication, we start becoming a character without any words whatsoever. The last thing I'll leave you with it is the concept of style. Style is not about the things that you wear. Style is about the way that you wear it. Actualize your potential catalyst. This world needs you. Take care of yourself. And if you made it to this point of the video, smash that like button. If you want more of this stuff in your feed, go ahead and subscribe. Peace.